Genshin Impact's all about the damage. Let's get it on. Xiangling is going to do way better than Kokomi. Kokomi does no damage. We don't need her. Let's rock the Dragon's Bane Constellation 6. Let's run all the beautiful crit damage, pyro attack, you name it. In fact, we've got the Bennett on Aquila Favonia. Beautiful. We've got the Raiden Shogun C4. We're going to stack all these buffs. You know the drill. Xingshu. And you know what? Just because I want to sort of rub it in Kokomi's face, let's give ourselves like an extra attack. Let's go, Masanori. Let's go. Let's spar. Yes, we're going to make Xiangling look as good as possible. Way better DPS, way better utility than a stupid little Kokomi. Right, you're going to attack. Come on. And let's get into it. And let's start stacking all these attack buffs. There we go. Very nice. Hey, and let's just see. Ooh, 30. Hey, 3,400 attack, very nice. 30k that we got off there, got the crit. Hey, very good, very nice. Oh, it is literally child's play. I can do this for hours and hours on end, so easy. Why on earth would you need Kokomi? Look at what the team is doing, absolutely brilliant work. And this guy is going to be dead. It's just a matter of time. Easy dubs. Let's go, Xiangling. Alright, I guess, let's just see what Kokomi can do, let's just, yeah, I don't expect this to really go well. I mean, my Xiangling is just going to destroy whatever Kokomi's time is going to be, so let's just see. I don't really expect too much to happen in this sort of attempt. I mean, there's no way she's doing any, but look at that. Where's the 30k? I'm not even seeing any big numbers. Absolutely terrible. And you know what? Let's just go away. Like, Kokomi, seriously, you can't even do any big damage. Where's the big numbers? I mean, that was just terrible, honestly. Alright guys, so the previous two video clips you saw was a very typical way the community in Genshin Impact thinks. So when a character like Kokomi comes out, whether a character like Ito or Ataki is going to come out, the first thing people are going to do is they want to compare what they already have, their already well-built team with everything that's been sort of carefully worked out by theory crafters for them, and they're going to compare it all against the new character. And typically what then happens is, and I think this was like, I hate content creators for doing this. A lot of them went and they were like, yeah, let's just see solo Kokomi. Let me do a daily grind, just solo Kokomi the Abyss. Oh my god, she does no damage, she's so bad. And I think it's just, it really irritates me when people don't get this right, because what's gonna happen if I put Xiangling against Masanori just as she is, solo? She's not even going to perform near Kokomi's level. It is all because of the fact that this character scales with multiplicative sort of reaction damage. You stack all the buffs and then you add reaction and crit rate and all these sorts of things on top of that to get like really good numbers. But if I want to heal with this character, she's not going to do any healing compared to Kokomi, and then you'll be like, but whoa, we can't compare apples and oranges. But then why are we comparing oranges to apples? Basically what I'm saying is, you don't want me to judge Xiangling on her ability to heal, but you want me to judge Kokomi on her ability to do damage. You don't want me to judge Xiangling for her ability to have like a large HP pool and tank for the team, but you want me to judge Kokomi that has no crit rate against a character that has by default crit rate or crit damage built into their kit. And that is where I think the comparisons really give such skewed results, and then people sort of do not understand the proper utility of Kokomi. So let us just take a step back, or let us think about how the game is sort of structured. So you get people like Eula, you get people like the Raiden Shogun, and I'm just going to sort of throw in Ayaka here in the mix as well, and just let's just go through all of this. So what do you have with Eula? Well, let me show you. I'm going to show it to you on my Microsoft whiteboard. You've got a character, and here you can see we've got time here, and then we've got damage. So this is effectively damage over time. So what does Eula do? Eula starts, she attacks the enemies. The Song of Broken Pines sort of passive starts kicking in right here. She starts doing more damage. She uses her E ability, she shreds resistance, and she goes into her ultimate, and she does this like enormous damage spike, and then whoop, Now you know Song of Broken Pines is reset, her cooldowns are resetting, and we're waiting for her to build up her elemental burst. The same sort of situation, a similar situation applies to Ayaka. Ayaka does a bit more damage, like here in the beginning. So typically what Ayaka would do is she'd use her E ability and her charge attack, and you'll get sort of like this, and then she does consistent damage, and then her ultimate comes, and then she does a bit more like consistent damage, and then her ultimate comes and she does more like consistent damage. The only difference, however, with Ayaka is that her damage over time curves looks a bit different than Eula, but it's more or less you can get the pattern. For many other characters in the game, the way in which their damage is distributed through time can look like this. It could be like short spikes like this. There are many ways in which you distribute damage. With Kokomi, of course, out of your burst you get flat damage, in your burst you get flat damage, out of your burst you get flat damage, etc, etc, etc. But the point of Kokomi is this peak that you see here is very variable depending on how much crit rate you're doing, what crit rate and stuff that you're packing. This peak with Kokomi is not variable at all. This is always consistent. You know what these numbers are. And now you might say, well, you know, obviously I want big number as opposed to small number over here. And that is still not the correct way to think about it. And let us look about it a bit further. What is the point of Eula? She is a hyper carry. That means you create a team around this character. Everything is about setting her up to do the maximum amount of damage and then having some sort of off-field DPS, let's say an Ayaka, Cleo, whoever you want to sort of put with Eula, I really don't care, in the downtime to sort of just keep up that sort of DPS per second. Otherwise you're going to lose it out. Then you have a character like Ayaka. She's more in the traditional burst main DPS. So she is all about sustained DPS. You saw like in the curve that I plotted. You have Raiden Shogun. Raiden Shogun, of course, giving energy recharge, giving more damage, and then doing damage herself as well. So she's a burst support. And then you have a character like Kokomi, which is entirely more dedicated to having a large HP pool to do healing. And then when the entire team's sort of cooldowns have been spent, the whole purpose is then for you to go onto Kokomi and do a bit of damage when necessary. However, you can play Kokomi with the intention of just sort of quick swapping. So it's all about just getting the off-field Hydra application and healing, and that might be more than good enough for you. For other people, they might use Kokomi with a reaction-based comp. If you've seen my channel, we've done a main DPS Kokomi, and we've done her sort of clearing the Spiral Abyss. So what are Kokomi's numbers like compared to the rest of them? Well, if you look at my Spiral Abyss, and let's quickly go there, we can sort of see Eula's numbers in action, and hopefully this will give you some perspective. Right, so we're here at the Spiral Abyss. Let's quickly go in. And let's just see on my challenge summary. There you can see Eula does about 900, almost 50k damage. That's just shy of 1 million. And that's all because she's doing what she was advertised to do, to be an incredible nuker. And that is the whole point. So now you might say to me, well, how does Kokomi's damage look? I mean, obviously we're not talking about C6 here. Well, that's quite easy. You can see here clearly when I did 0 buffs, there's no Adeptus Temptation. You can see here, this is typically what my Kokomi does. A C1 Kokomi will do roughly about half of this, and then a C0 Kokomi will obviously do about 120k. Oops, not divided by 2. But that's typically what I'd expect a C0 Kokomi to do. I can back this up with sort of numbers that I've seen here. So if you add what these guys have done, free-to-play Kokomis, you can look at these YouTube channels. I'll link them below. Sevi's one is a bit like low compared to a typical free-to-play one. But the whole point is, if you don't believe me, there are some numbers. Now, here's the thing. If Eula does a lot of damage, and we now get Kokomi to do not 300 damage like you can see here on screen, like the, where was it? The 331, or let's say 320, but she did 600,000 damage during her ultimate. What does that mean? That is called power creep, because essentially she would do the same damage that roughly Ayaka and Raiden would do, but she would have no downside to being a squishy character. She would be able to heal the entire team. She'd be able to tank. She'd be able to provide off-field sort of Hydra application. In other words, the character would do too much. She would be the very definition of power creep if her damage was just too high. And that is the point that I'm trying to make. You've got to understand what the role of the characters are. If she does all that she does, then what will be the point of Chi-Chi? What will be the point of Jean except for Vivi Shred, which you can just put on Kazuha or Sucrose, etc. If this character did way more damage than she does, then this character is power crept, this character is power crept. These guys would then typically have a bit of competition, but the rest of the cast would be really lacking. And that is the whole point. That's the big takeaway here. Kokomi is not supposed to do big numbers of damage. That is not her intended purpose. But you might say, look, if I look at all her constellation, this sure is about damage. No, it's not. Constellation 1, damage. I will concede. Constellation 2, purely healing. Constellation 3, well, that is a mix of healing and damage. There's no other way around it. This is a mix of healing. Again, getting attack speed up means you can attack faster, which means you can get more heals, and you can also restore energy. So it's not just purely about DPS. You already have here a couple of constellations. These 3 constellations affect DPS and healing in a and her tanking capabilities. People don't read into this. Bakekoroge is not for damage, he is all about healing. This is a healing constellation. And then finally Kokomi's signature constellation is of course to do more hydro damage. So this is then of course a DPS constellation. But the majority of the constellations, if you look, about 4 out of the 6 of them are not focused on pure damage. They're actually about rounding out the character very properly. So to get this misconception that she is advertised to be about damage is not a Kokomi thing. It's not MiHoYo messing up. It is you that want this character to be something that she shouldn't be, because if she is that something that you want her to be, it will be power creeping the game, and that is not healthy. So what MiHoYo has done is actually pretty awesome. I am very happy as a C6R5 Kokomi owner to be able to know that I'm doing more than double the amount of damage. A lot of people, like I went to Lose Gaming, complained that a peak free-to-play Eula and a C6 Eula, you know, there's like an almost like 100% damage difference, and it's almost 400% at the peak of it. Well, that's the point. With more constellations, your character should be able to heal like for almost 13k with their jellyfish if your health is quite below. Otherwise, it should be about 9.5. She should do more healing. She should do more damage. She should do more tanking. That is the point of getting more constellations behind this character. Not necessarily to do damage, but as you guys saw, in one single rotation, Kokomi did all the damage necessary to take out Masanori's health, whereas I can promise you, if we did it just with solo Xiongling, if we did it with just solo almost many of these other characters except Ayaka, Ganyu, and of course the other big DPS, but if you did it with Jean, if you did it with, I would even say with Kaching, most of these other characters, you're not going to get really very far. So to be able to just sort of compare a single aspect of Kokomi to what you already have, it's just, I don't know, you've got to be realistic about your comparison. So hopefully you guys sort of get my perspective. I don't think Kokomi's damage is a problem, and we're getting an artifact set which will of course then boost this damage. So the last point that I want to make is, if you look at an artifact set, and we're now looking at 300k damage here, obviously my Kokomi is going to max it out, which means we'll get 330 plus, what is it, 27k times 3, which will be about 411 damage. That is pretty substantial sort of increase. And of course with buffs, I mean my Kokomi with buffs and does about 480k damage. So with the artifact set we'll get into about the 500k, so she'll then be sort of in the Raiden Shogun area-ish in terms of damage, just below that, but it'll be quite good. So you don't have anything really to worry about in terms of damage. Now, very important as a final point, I'm comparing C6 to C6 because why not? And the argument that, oh my god, it's so much easier to get this than to get this, is going to be one that will be irrelevant in 2 to 3 years time, because there will be F2P players that will have C6 Kokomis, they will have C6 Ayakas. They might not have all the characters at C6, but in a few years time you will have a few characters at C6. At the very moment, people want to compare a C0 Kokomi to an already built, let's say, character like Xiangling, or to whoever you want to put as DPS at C6. So you're comparing almost like the floor of damage against the ceiling of all these 4-star characters, and then you say, well, there's no value. But this is the thing, give it time, and then you'll see a lot of these 5 stars. Once you start adding constellations, they just run miles around the 4-star characters, and that's also going to happen. So if you guys have been sticking around to the end, thank you for watching. Hope you've sort of understood my perspective. I know this has been a long video, but it needed to be made, I just need to rein in the Genshin community just to get the proper perspective of what to expect from Kokomi.